Thanks, Lisa. We're just trying to cut up all the different ways that this is awful for National. I've got Peter Dunne and Jane Patterson with me. If National lose Ireland, you'd have to think, has Labour been too conservative? I mean, it reminds me of David Lange. We talked about how David Lange freaked out in 1987 after those first batch of right-wing reforms where he nearly won in Emueda, and he thought, have I gone too far? Now, I'm not saying that there's some sort of blitzkrieg of Rogernomics from the Labour Party, but have they been too conservative if you're going to win Ireland?
Look, I don't think you can make the same comparison. I think it's different circumstances. This is just a very, very unusual election in quite unusual circumstances. And I think what's happened is that a swing has begun. I think the advanced voting has had a sort of an avalanche effect as that's gone on and on and on. It's made it more interesting for people to get in and vote early for the status quo. And I think what we're seeing now is just a sort of a massive great tidal wave coming in.
Jane, just to run through these, and I know you've got some thoughts about it, a couple of seats where they're marginally ahead. Taranaki King Country, an incredible conservative seat. They're only 50-odd ahead last time I looked. Maungakiekia, 25 ahead. Rotorua, where Todd McClay is, just 20 ahead. And they're behind National. They're behind Labour in Invercargill, both the Hamilton East and West seats, and 4,000 behind in Nelson.
And in seats like Waitaki, Northcote, there are real battles going on there. We're just seeing a number of seats flipping blue to red. Now, when I was first looking at the potential for list MPs to come in on the National Party list, depending on electorates, I sort of looked at about 33 what had been safe national seats, and after that then you start bringing in people from the list. But what we're looking at now is the National have 33 seats in total, and a lot of those seats are starting to fall. Now, it's too early to say that this is definitely going to happen, but what we could be potentially looking at is an overhang situation. Now, what that is when a party wins more electorates than it does party votes, and you get no one on the list.
And we usually see this with the tiny parties, don't we? That's where we used to see it with the small parties, but we wouldn't have expected it with a national party.
So you've got people like Paul Goldsmith, Michael Woodhouse, Nicola Willis, Melissa Lee gone. So if you have no potential to bring in any list candidates, that is a complete and utter disaster.
Well, can Judas Collins...
But on the other hand, if National loses a sufficiently large number of electorate seats, the position of those people actually is strengthened.
Yes,
so
it could bring them
Paul
back.
Goldsmith might be sitting there saying, yes, but, and so in a funny sort of way, you might get people this is the whole problem, I think, with lists, to go out in the electorate today but come back in on the list tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you've got Jerry Brownlee there, potentially at number 2, relying on a list position to come back to Parliament, let alone Paul Goldsmith, who's the next one at number 3, their most senior MP's deputy and finance spokesperson.
Well, one person who's not in trouble here, looking at this in his electorate seat, is Christopher Luxon in Bosnia. Now, he's 2,500 votes ahead of Nasi Chen, the Labour candidate there. Look, that's not a surprise. We're expecting him to win. But the segue and obvious seed that I've sown there is, I keep crashing this mic, but can Judith Collins hang on?
She's in real trouble. Yeah. I mean, we've been talking to National MPs and they were saying that if National achieved 30 plus 35, there'd be absolute celebration. They're sitting on 25% at the moment. Again, 30% of the vote counted. But there will be National MPs all over the place, not only looking to lose their seat, but looking at that leadership.